The Age of 17, 2016. I saw this film first when it was released in the cinema in 2016, very much the end of that year it was in the cinema, because I remember seeing it again at the start of 2017, so The Age of 17 felt almost appropriate in another sense. However, it's a coming of age story, and so it in a sense, the trailer compares it with Mean Girls and a few other films, classic films, and I found it, very appealing and enjoyable. It was pretty good fun to watch because it shows all the dilemmas that a teenage girl who is 17 years old faces. It's it stars Haley Steinfeld, who I've gathered since is a pop star. I think I don't know actually, was she a pop star first and then moved into acting or vice versa? I have heard a couple of her songs and then realised she's the same, actor, the same person as the star of this film. But at the time I first saw this film, I didn't realise that was her. But, it also stars Woody Harrelson as the long-suffering teacher whom she often goes to. Nadine is Haley Steinfeld's character. She's 17 years old, and she often turns up at Woody Harrelson's character's, um, desk, when he's having a break, he's trying to have lunch, and she interrupts him, and she's often full of anxiety and sometimes very dramatic. I mean, she talks about, and this is the one of the things, it's humorous, but some of the messages, it sounds like she's either taken on board. I don't think she's actually serious about, self-harm, suicide, stuff like that, but she makes references to that, and there's some other humor like that, which is very much on the edge again. It's like there's a scene where she's upset with her brother, who's having a party, and she, um, pretends to ring up the police and says that he's, um, being inappropriate, let's put it that way, and he isn't, and, it's like she pushes the boundaries sometimes in a way that I imagine some 17-year-olds might do, but it often does come across as a bit drama queen-like, and that's not a huge criticism of her character, Nadine, but it is that sort of tenuous area that I imagine Woody Harrelson's teacher is very much used to her behaviour, so he knows what point to draw the line, like when to take things seriously and when to treat it like a joke, and I think he does it very well. I think he's a really great teacher. Seeing this film, I don't know, I may have got it wrong, but, um, that's how the script of this film goes, that, um, he often replies in a jocular manner, often a sort of, bounce back in, pointed sort of jokey criticism of her. Um, I mean, what one example is, and it appears in the trailer, um, she's got a crush on this older lad. I guess he's about 19 or 20. Think he's might not be in school by now, but he has been at that school, same as, Nadine. But now he's a bit of a thinks he's a cool guy, works in Petland, local pet shop, and she says, um, she's obsessed with him in the sort of way that typical 17-year-olds often are, and she writes a text message to him, and she's looking at it thinking, "Oh, I can't send this. This is awful, pathetic." But when she's going to press delete, she accidentally hits send, and it goes to Nick, and, uh, she's distraught by this. I don't know if distraught's the right word, but she goes to see the teacher, her favorite teacher, and she shows him her phone, and he reads it out aloud, and you can see her wanting the earth to swallow her up. She's so embarrassed by it, as anyone would be in that situation. And then at the end, she's saying, "Please, please say something, please." She wants him to break, just make things all right again. And he says, "This is full of you could avoid run-on sentences." I guess, she hasn't punctuated it. So, there's all that sort of humor all the way through. Sometimes it's stronger than that. It's very acerbic. At other times, it's there's like some bit more serious stuff towards the end. I mean, it could have got really awfully serious right at the end, but fortunately, it doesn't. No, well, it doesn't really. I mean, right. Don't want to give spoilers, but there's a certain scene towards the end where she meets someone, and I, when I was watching it with a friend yesterday, I was thinking this could go awfully wrong. I know it doesn't really go as I mean, it could go absolutely terribly wrong, like, it's not a recommended thing that, she does. Involves, um, getting driven somewhere in a car with someone she doesn't know very well, and, taken to a remote, quite isolated part of town. Uh, Definitely not. I mean, it must happen a lot. Um, you know, but it's definitely not a good thing, and obviously, a stranger taking you to an isolated place when you're a teenage girl or any age woman, probably anyone being taken in a car when you haven't got any way of, overpowering them if they try anything. It's obviously not a good situation. Um, you know, we all have to protect ourselves. That is obvious, I hope. But those sort of things do happen. Um, that's all I can really say. But after that, um, when the teacher has to pick up the pieces after that disaster, uh, I'll use the word disaster advisedly, as in it could be so much worse, but it's a difficulty, and the teacher picks up Nadine, and um, it's really, I think it's really sweet. Those sort of scenes. There's a sort of there's another. I don't know if it's a sub story, subplot. in a sense, it might not be because it could be, again, something that I don't want to spoil the film about, but there's this other student sitting at the next desk in class, and he's equally socially awkward as Nadine, and he's so nervous and she's nervous, and it's just awesome watching them. And he's got Korean parents who have left him for 3 months, looking after this plush pad, amazing house with a heated swimming pool. And they've gone off to Korea and they've trusted him, and he invites Nadine round and they go swimming in the pool, and they become, moderately good friends. They seem to hit it off as friends together. And then he plays this song on these loudspeakers, and it's a slightly smutty, rude song, but very jokey and fun. And there's all these like really, I think, very sweet elements to this story that I absolutely loved, and that's why I think it is a great coming of age film. There's a backstory to Nadine because, like, you see her when she was younger, and she gets bullied by the other girls, when she's probably about 8, so, quite young, and her father is, her savior as such. I mean, he always, um he's someone that she idolizes and helps her, and then at one point explains right at the start of the film he has a heart attack or something, some serious illness, and dies, and then the family's left with, um she's got a brother and she's got a mother, and her mother is a kind of quite a mess. She's quite immature, doesn't always think things through well, and she's a widower, so she's sort of back in the dating pool, but doesn't always get uh, g- good people, and you know, um, she doesn't make great life choices, and she says some really daft things. And in a way, I think Nadine's like on top of all that, especially once she's 17, she sort of like takes it all in. There's one scene where um, Nadine has a fit, bit of a strop on the way to school, and her mother loses her temper and takes her to the office, and then um, Nadine gets annoyed with her mum and takes the car, even though she hasn't passed her test. She um, sort of steals her keys and rides off in the car. And then there's some quite dramatic scenes, or they could go quite dramatically. Um, and then whether there's huge repercussions from that, I mean, to a large extent, her slightly older brother, who's a bit of a role model, quite, I don't know, quite a nice lad, it seems. He just think he's like the apple of his mum's eye, and there's that whole thing that sometimes it happens in families, like where the daughter is like gets on better with the father, and the son gets on better with the mother, and so suddenly everything's tilted unevenly because the father's no longer there, and this brother is like mainly really responsible. I mean, he has parties and things like that, but he cleans up afterwards. And Nadine's got a friend for a few years, but then again, fairly early on in the film, loses that friend or falls out with that friend when she um, starts going out with her brother. And you can see how all these tensions build up. It's exactly the sort of things that happen a lot in families, and that's why it is a great coming of age film, because so much can really test you as you're going through your teenage years. I mean, it's very cis and straight. There's not really many. I can't think of any LGBTQIA plus stories in this film, but from the cis and straight point of view, it it does cover a lot of the obstacles that happen for a 17-year-old as she's coming of age. She's coming up towards adulthood, and yet she's got such a steep learning curve. There's so many things that can go wrong, and I've seen a load of films, but I do really like this. There's her her the lad she knows in class. He's a filmmaker. There's some little story sub stories or stories that come through that really are sweet, and then there's other more dramatic things. But I think it's a whole brilliant film in lots of ways. So I'm going to score it 9 out of 10. I'd love to know what you think. Um, Thanks for subscribing. Please hit the notification button and hope to see you again soon. Thanks. Bye for now.